And Conor had that from the very day one. And Conor was probably the first really in that league of fighters that came from the boxing fraternity to be able to, you know, go that ladder quicker.
You go to where he went to.
So quick because and of course he's loads of balls and he believes in himself.
I'm the DKJ and I'm with Tom Barnes, head coach of Matt Floyd. How you doing, Tom?
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to
I have to say. Samuel, it's nice to meet you, and thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to highlight what we're trying to do with Matt the Jedi Floyd. It's been a privilege to actually work with him. I don't mean to correct you in any way whatsoever, and I appreciate what you've said, but the head coach is actually Phil Sutcliffe.
Sure.
And I'm just a trainer in Crumlin Boxing Club. We've got two head coaches there. We've got Brad Brady, who works also with Conor McGregor when they were kids with Philip Sutcliffe, who brought Conor through the ranks.
Sure.
And I'm just like a coach, like a lot of the coaches in the club. At one stage in Crumlin Boxing Club, we would have had about 28 coaches in the club.
Wow.
So it's a big club. It's well recognised in Ireland and hopefully around the world through a lot of other aspects. Phil Sutcliffe and Brad, it's kind of started the club off with another man called Noel Griffin at the time, great boxer himself, all the Griffins. Paul Griffin was a great boxer, won 12 Irish titles, and he was a European gold medalist. He was only up in the club just recently, actually last week, and he was working the pads with Philip. So it gives a great opportunity for people who in the past, present and future of the boxing club, that they still show respect. Philip started off another club previously to that, the Drimna, which was a very famous club in Ireland.
Sure.
Mick Dowell, Michael Carruth, Paul Griffin, the Roots himself, Phil Sutcliffe, and many other boxers that I don't have time to mention because that were also great boxers. But in regards of Matt's training aspect and how we've orchestrated his program was through Philip Sutcliffe, and it was an intense program this time around, to be honest with you. We didn't really get a chance to work with Matt a lot this year. We gave him a program he sent to Australia. Matt has really stuck to the program, and we're just hoping now. But we're not hoping because we know that Matt is a good guy, and you know he has a unique style of boxing. For the purists in the boxing fraternity, especially in the UK, who have Queensby Rules and Eddie Ahern, or and Frank Warren would look at people like that in boxing and say, who are they or what are they? But I can honestly tell you, realistically, from working with him as a trainer and a coach, and with Philip's inspirations as well, and his boxing abilities and his professionalism, Philip has a lot of contracts in boxing, and we were down with Andy Lee last week. And for people who don't know Andy Lee was an exceptional boxer for Ireland. He's a great ambassador for the sport. Samuel, I have to say, you probably know him. He's a great ambassador. Am I right?
He's working with formidable competitors right now, the likes of Ben Whittaker, and he's been in the game. He's worked with the likes of your Furies, your he's just been the Shirazes. He's worked with them all. He's absolutely got the pedigree of in the boxing world.
In the boxing world, yeah. But the most important thing about Andy, I find, in fairness to him, and I genuinely mean this, and it's not because it's the camera, he's an absolute gentleman. He's a very quiet, unassuming man, but he is very, very respectful of anybody who steps into his ring, anybody who's in his presence, he has time for. He never dismisses anybody. He always gives people his professional opinion. And with that unique, lucky chapter we have in Irish boxing at the moment with the likes of Big Bang Casey and other people, the Donovans, and just recently we had young Walsh as well boxing in a title fight against Peter Carr in Ireland. Our own Glenn Lynch done very, very well. We have a good pedigree of boxing. We don't have time, of course, to be able to name them all, but at this present moment it's in a healthy place. We've got Jay Bourne, the promoter in Ireland, is producing a lot of shows so people can get on and show themselves, and that's good for Irish sport. Brilliant. That's good for Irish boxing. Irish boxing went through the doldrums for a while back because unfortunately it went through a process where it came to a situation where I was in the state of chassis, basically.
Okay.
You know, it created a lot of problems. There was bad press about boxing. And unfortunately, the media liked bad press, but they never really homed on the good press. You know, and the good press is, please God, back again. It's good for boxing. As I said, we were down with Andy Lee. We sparred Ben Whittaker last week. A gentleman and a fabulous boxer. Great hand speed, great footwork. I remember when he boxed in the Olympics, he was very good, and I do understand why he put the medal in his pocket. He was more annoyed with himself. He wasn't being disrespectful to anybody else. Yeah. But that's Ben's mindset. He's 100% committed with a great coach. When you've got the likes of Andy Lee, with the likes of Tyson Fury and people like that. And, you build bridges and you build blocks in boxing that you have to try and, sometimes, it can be a swamp, you know. And as one great coach said once before, Brendan Ingle, it's a prostituting business. I don't like to use that word, but it is a prostituting business. We looked at Nassim's ups and his downs, and he was a great boxer as well. And I know there's a lot of controversy about what Nassim said about Brendan. I wouldn't like to reflect too much on that, to be honest with you. The jury is out on a lot of people like that, but there's a lot of things that in boxing, it can go that way.
Sure.
With fighters. There's a great saying that Brendan Ingle said as well, which is very, very true. Always be kind to the people on the way up.
Yes.
Because you know yourself, you're a boxer yourself, you're a fit guy, you're going to meet them all on the way back down. And some of these people are the people that made you. And
that's a rule for life.
And I mean, I've met Ricky Hatton a few times and Norby Guthrum, or they're staying right in Adam. And he was a gentleman. I met Ricky on a good few occasions. I was blessed to meet him. And, again, you can see the other side of boxing, unfortunately, where it can turn in a bad way for people. And sometimes the help is not out there after boxing.
Brilliant.
And I think that's a very important point for us all to reflect on, that, they're human beings.
Sure. For sure.
They're not punch bags.
No, they're not machines.
You know that you're in the game.
Yeah.
And in Crumlin Boxing Club, we try to instill, from a very early age, we have development programs.
Sure.
Where we try to instill, discipline. And Phil Sutcliffe has a great saying. He has it on the wall. Now he stole a little bit from someone else, in fairness to Phil, but you can remember me from 100 years from now is the way it goes, But he always says that if I can be important in a child's life for 5 minutes, I've achieved something.
That's good.
Which I know people can say that in sport, and I don't want to, over, play it, but boxing is an individual sport. It's when you're in that ring.
Sport at it as well. It's a hard sport at it as well.
And when you're in that ring, and the bell rings, everything goes out the window. It's you focusing on what your coaches have taught you and try to instill in you to make you a better person in the ring. Yeah. And it's a dangerous sport.
Absolutely.
And it's a hard sport. And, but it's also a beautiful sport because it's about the art of not being hit.
It's the metaphor of life.
I love that. That's a great analogy.
Because everything in life, the ups, the downs, can you get up when you're knocked down? Can you take a hard hit? How do you respond in adversity? How do you respond in, not going to plan? And are you willing to die? Because essentially,
that's very true.
This is what these fighters, these courageous young men who step into the ring, respect to anyone who takes up the sport and gets in there, because it's a tough sport, and what you have to do to get into the ring, as in the preparation, is quite remarkable, which is where you kind of come in, Where do you see?
Yeah.
Because are you...
the cold face, basically.
Yeah, where do you see where stars are born and the guys from, because you're in the amateurs, right?
That's
you're
right.
involved in the amateurs,
and
and now with the pro game. Where do you see the difference of mindset and the guys right, this one's going to go all the way?
Do you know what? That's a very, very good question. And how do you put so much 30 odd years into coaching into an answer like that? I mean, if I reflect on a lot of things about coaching, if you don't keep your mind open as a coach, you can't give your boxer at any age the benefit that they deserve. If you close your mind, then you're closing off the ring, as we say. You need to be able to let them flow. Like we have a kid, for example, Christian Giovanni. We had Willow Hayden before him that won the European gold. Christian is going through the ranks now. Just recently, he's an exceptional boxer. He just came back from the Europeans. He beat the world's Ukrainian #1. He's gone all the way through, and he keeps excelling himself all the time. But Christian, reflects everything that we want as a child, as a boxer. He's very, very disciplined. He's very respectful to his mother and father.
Sure.
And no, genuinely, he comes into the club. If he needs to cut a bit of weight, he doesn't he doesn't expect what's the word I'm looking for? Attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he doesn't need attention because all his focus is on getting fit, respecting the club, trying to learn, and that thing about where do you know where the child is going to go from being something normal to being something special. Well, that's part of the coach's way of doing things with children. How you read a child from an early age, what makes a child tick. Like for example, something that we do in Crumlin Boxing Club, for example, we have a high five club. Paddy Dingle done it with the club, and there's people come into our club with special needs. And I remember Christmas time, Ted Deneen came in at Christmas. He came all the way from Cork as Santa Claus, and he came into the ring. And there was kids there with special needs, okay? And in Ireland, we have a great expression. Every cripple has his own way of walking. We all have. And when them kids come in and they're getting presents, you know, like they're involved with everything. And they've changed so much for such a small space of time. Because like they could go to psychologists, they could go and sit with the family and talk to the best experts, and they are experts. But there's a human touch is important. And that's where coaching comes in. That little human touch to make that child go from being something that they want to being special. On the switch of it, like that. That's the way it is. And that's what we do in Crumlin Boxing Club. Like Conor McGregor, for example. I know, there's so many come through. Conor was a prime example. Conor came into the club, he was with Celtic, or not Celtic United, should I say, Crumlin United as a kid. And he was walking across the floor. This is the story, and the floor was after being varnished. And he had a pair of football boots on, and one of the coaches gave out to him, And Conor, quick thinking, asked for an application form. And if he didn't ask for that, and he didn't come in at that time, we don't know what if Conor came through the system.
Wow.
But Conor came through the system with a lot of Dean Bourne and young Phil Sutcliffe and young Kavanagh.
Do you remember Conor's first day and coming in?
Well, no, to be honest with you, I was always very busy, but Philip would have and Brad would have when they came into the club. Absolutely. Conor was in, Conor is, and always was, had that ability to be out. Some people say, in boxing, and I have to say, this is one thing I find about Conor. Some people say about ability to box is very important, as you know yourself, because you box, right? Ability. But you know what? There's not many people in boxing have agility. Now, Conor can read a shot. Bang! With that backhand.
Right.
He can just see it. And they were all Crumlin shots that he learned as a young boy.
I see.
And honestly, genuinely, we've a lot of shots in Crumlin that we learned that I won't go into on video, and my coach would strangle me if I done that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of shots we have, but Conor came in and it was the agility of what he was able to see and read. And he went away to the MMA. And at one stage, he was giving it all up. Owen Roddy is one of his main coaches as well on the pads. Owen was exceptional. And Owen gave up the MMA at a very early age. Dave Roach, I call him Buckets of Blood. I trained him in the club since he was a kid. All the way up, him and John Kavanagh started off all the kind of grappling and all, and it became big then. And Owen Roddy had a scan, and it took him a long time. I was only talking to Owen last week. He said it was very hard for him to, not enough you know yourself, you give it all your life to boxing. And what's after boxing? What's after competitive sports? Sure. Where's that adrenaline rush? Where's that discipline? Where's the ability to further yourself when you've went so hard and so fast to get to that spot that you want to be? Sure. And then it goes from underneath you like pulling a carpet.
Wow. It's
hard. But in fairness to Owen just said, he said, I gave her up, he said, and I rang Conor. And he was telling me this story last week, and Conor was on the phone, and Conor was going, "Oh no, if you're giving it up, I'm going to give it up. I'm sick of it now, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do it anymore." A couple of days later, John Kavanagh rang Conor, because John was after sending that many emails and phone calls to the UFC, Dana White, for a long time. A lot of people probably don't know this story. I only learned the story myself. And you get no phone calls. And all of a sudden, John got that call, and he rang Conor and said, "Listen, I have a fight for you, UFC." And that was Conor's path to where he is now. Wow. You know, I mean, fantastic. That was that chance. You know, that's in the UFC. Conor was in the right place at the right time. But not only in the right place at the right time and being Irish to 60 million Americans, okay? But he had that ingredient, which was agility. He can read. He's so exceptional at reading things. Wow. Honestly, I've had the pleasure of being down in the training camps, and I've just studied and looked, and he's just, I'm not just saying it, you know, he's amazing at how he can just do things so split second timing.
Well, that's always been part of his game, right? His ability to move and slip off the line very quickly and hit with that signature left hand uppercut combination.
You're so
fantastic. You know, with all we've seen, and actually, it's been a hindrance.
Go on.
For the UFC not having him actually over the last couple of years, and I just want to touch on actually maybe kudos to Conor, because he's been in a period for the last few years where he's been trying to get a fight.
That's right.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, he hasn't been able to get the fights, and just so he can stay active recently, am I right in saying he actually had a boxing match? And this is a guy who's been there, done it, gone to Hollywood, gone to the UFC, champion, boxing, Mayweather. He's gone back to his Crumlin amateur boxing gym and done a competitive bout.
Funny enough, I'm glad you brought that up actually. In fairness, and your analysis of Conor is like that. In fairness, it's to the point. Like Conor's had injuries, and anybody knows anything about boxing as well. There's also contractual issues. You know, Conor still has 2 fights on his contract, of course, with Dana White, and he did come back. But there's one thing about Conor, in fairness to him, and I really give him this, you know, and I don't mind saying this, and I don't mind sticking my chest out and say this. Like, he's never forgot his roots in Crumlin Boxing Club. Sure. He's never forgot his... And I mean, it's not... By the way, that's not the first show he's boxed on. We have a show in Dublin in Crumlin called the Good Friday Show. And Conor's boxed on a couple of the shows. And yeah, I know he has been inactive in regards of competitive fighting. But he's always kept himself ticking over on injuries. But there's one thing about him. He had a great fight, as you said, with Barry Isaac. I was in Barry's corner with Toig, which is another great coach. But he's great padman. We call him Padman Mac. Right. He's very good on the pads. He's exceptional on the pads. And he had a good fight with Barry. Barry stepped in at the last minute, believe it or not. And you know, and Conor, in fairness, you know, you could see the little movements that he has, the movements and skill. But from the Good Friday up till now, without saying too much, to be perfectly honest with you, because you know, he's come on heaps and bounds. But again, he's never forgot his roots when it came to Crumlin, because boxing is a huge part, I believe, of the sport going forward in MMA. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of great fighters there. I know they talk about Holloway, we don't go too much into Holloway. You know, you've got Poirier, you've got Jan Perez, you've got what's his name?
Pereira.
Yeah, Pereira. The Spanish Georgian was only looked recently.
Oh, yes.
To Poirier.
Yes.
To Poirier. You know, and there's other fighters like that where you can see now that hand speed is so important. Sure. It's so important. And a lot of MMA fighters come from, you know, jiu-jitsu and other sports like that, which is tough and competitive. Sure. But hand speed and balance is very, very difficult to achieve.
That takes repetition and time.
At the optimum level where you control that when you need it.
Wow.
And that's why I say about Conor, he's got agility. He's got loads of ability as a boxer, but agility, it's very hard to get the two of them to connect properly. And you know, Phil is back working with him constantly. And Conor's very grounded. He's very grounded. I mean, honestly, he's learning all the shots. He's repeating all the shots that he knows. He doesn't leave a stone unturned, and it's good. Look, it's good for the club. It's good for Crumlin, you know, and it's good for boxing in general as well to know that, you know, a superstar that's achieved everything came from a club, from a working class area where there was no money in the club for years and years and years. And Philip and Brad, people like him, and other people that were there as well. Other coaches just kept the club afloat constantly, and we still do. We still do keep it. Like I was in Finchley there a while back in London. I fought the Sean Murphy there, and I remember they had what you call it. It was an R.G. Harrison they had. He was a great Olympic gold medal. He was brilliant, you know. And unfortunately for his contract, it didn't work out. And then you had AJ, you know. And like you walk in, it's just an ordinary club again, and they're trying their best. And you always seem to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but sometimes when you're cutting corners and pulling and throwing from this and that, and you're making things survive, that instinct in a fighter in clubs like that makes them more appreciative when they get to the top. You know, and again, I'll get back to Ben Williams. He's an absolute gentleman. You know, with Andy, and the reason I'm saying that because it's only recently we were with him. And you know, and for example, I know we're talking about Matt, and we haven't talked to Matt in a while. We went off the track a little bit.
We will get to Matt.
But yeah, in saying that, you know, I really believe in the whole UFC and Bellator and MMA. I really believe that boxing really is the final nail in your armor.
Sure.
You know, I don't mean your final nail, but your final nail to finish a fight. Finish a fight.
It's
key. It's crucial and key.
Lethality.
Yes.
Which separates those who can close the show and those you might need to take it to the ground. You might need to wrestle. You might need to just slug out a fight. Whereas boxing is the lethality which can close the show. And
the feet work is different.
It's different. And for those who are untrained, they don't, you only see that when you experience it. Just as there's levels in boxing. You only experience that like, oh wow, this is different. Because what these guys are doing, they're threading punches like a needle in a haystack. This is what they're doing.
That's a very good point.
If they're able to do that under massive pressure,
that's a very good observation of it.
So the UFC, the reason why the likes of Conor, Ilya Topuria, Pereira are able to have star power is because they've managed
that
to
shot
do
that angle that you can see,
the agility, the footwork, the hand speed, the things which most quote unquote mixed martial art fighters they probably don't hone on because they've got other martial arts they want to focus on. So it's fascinating you kind of breaking down the key ingredients which allows these fighters, and we see it, to win and win, you know. Yeah,
win well and spectacular. I mean, like,
its foundation is boxing.
Yeah, foundation is boxing. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of grapplers out there that are very good. Kazakhstan's, and you know what I mean, the likes of Khabib and all. He's I don't mean this disrespectfully, but he's thrown them out now, you know. And he was fighting one of them recently as well, and it was a power grab for just punching.
Sure.
You know, and again, you know, at some stage when you're up on the ground, if you can just get that foot inside and step that half inch and throw it backhand, or catch him with a hook stepping in, that's the money winner from a lot of fighters.
Wow.
I mean, it's the money winner. It's you know, a lot of the skill sets before that is important. But, you know, if you really look at, like, say, the Holloway fights, the Poiriers and the two Poiriers, and I'm just going to Holly for an example, you know, it's all about, you know, stepping in outside that pocket and being able to flick that jab out and throwing that shot before you throw a kick, or throwing the kick and getting the jab in. And they work well, why? Because they've got the boxing. You know, once you have boxing, you know, you've always got that extra edge to win a fight. I personally believe. And Conor had that from the very day one. And Conor was probably the first really in that league of fighters that came from the boxing fraternity to be able to, you know, go that ladder quicker.
You go to where he went to.
So quick, because and he, of course, he's loads of balls and he believes in himself. He's as we say now, he's loads of Leroy. You know what I mean? he believed in himself. And the most important thing as well about Conor at the time was, like what I've seen was he didn't ask, well, who am I fighting? Why am I fighting? When and who was all he said.
It, yeah.
You know?
That's actually been spoken about. You know, Dana White has spoken on that, and
Has he? Yeah.
how Conor's always just been, listen, tell me who I'm fighting.
Yeah.
Tell me about the cancellations. I don't care. You know, and that's a fighter through and through, is it not?
If I've ever seen a walk that emulates a man that has so much belief in himself, ever, would be Conor McGregor's walk in the ring.
Yeah, no.
You cannot emulate that. And no one else could do that.
No, you couldn't.
Destroy it. The shoulder walk.
That's it.
The whole lot. You know? I mean, you know, that says it all about really.
Let's touch on that, because there's something in that. Because obviously, is Crumlin your home city?
Yeah, Crumlin Boxing Club is a club.
But as in like...
well, Conor grew up in Crumlin. Yeah, Conor grew up in Crumlin. Yeah,
and
yourself? I came from Ballymun.
Okay.
Well, I came into Crumlin years and years ago because I was in the army with Philip, in the Irish Army.
Okay.
And I boxed with Philip, and I boxed for Philip, should I say, and that, you know what I mean? So, and I was always coaching, and I was coaching in Ballymun. So I've always had that connection. And funny enough, you know, we again, in the army, you get a lot of time to box as well if you're good enough, and we did. And we've always kept that connection. Sure. So Crumlin is really part of my home because I spend a lot of time there, you know?
Yeah. Is that a Crumlin thing, or is that an island thing? Because
right. You mean as in the amount of times you go to a club?
The unity, the loyalty, the fabrics of how the Irish people get behind their own, but also stay loyal to their own.
Yeah.
Likes of, you know, we're talking about kind of coming back to his amateur gym.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, if you can talk on that, obviously being a, you know, that's your
well, I've seen a lot of that.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of that, and it's a very good point or question you asked me, because, you see, in Dublin, for example, you've got the Dublin Boxing Board, and you've got the Leinster Boxing Board, and then you've got the Connacht. So you've got Ulster, Munster, Leinster, and Connacht. They've got exceptional boxers in Ulster as well. A lot of great fighters come from Ulster, you know, over the years as well. But yeah, you're right in saying that it's very grassroots in Dublin. Dublin is, look, Dublin, and I'm proud to say this, Dublin is predominantly a working class area, okay? And it is a working class area in the context that people are very grounded around the area that they live in, especially in areas like Finglas, Ballymun, Ballybrack, you know, Ballymun. They again, you know, some of them are social deprived areas, and I don't use that as a catalyst to say, you know, that's just the way we are, you know, but, you know, it's because we have social deprivation that we want to, you know, always, you know, strive to be better. I just think that's the DNA of Irish people anyway. What's in the marrow comes out in the bone with the Irish. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way we are, without going into a history lesson. But in regards of the club identity in Ireland itself, and in Dublin in particular, yes, there's you know, you should actually, I shouldn't be laughing, but you should actually have a conversation with Phil Sutcliffe about that, because Phil was in Drimna all his life at the start. And then Philip left Drimna. Funny enough, you've got Crumlin and you've got Drimna right beside each other, okay, which is a stone's throw away each other. And Philip was in Crumlin or Drimna all his life, and then he opened up Crumlin Boxing Club, as I said, with Noel Griffin and people like that. And he stayed there, and it broke his heart. It broke his heart. And you're right, like if somebody, I shouldn't say this, and I don't mean this in the wrong terms, but if somebody decides they want to go to another club in Dublin, okay, especially kids with their family and all that, and you have to put a lot of time and effort into that kid, it's your boy, you know, and you know that he's going to do well. And at some stage, you know, you might hold his card back that you don't want him to box in the leagues. Well, he has our card, so he can't box for you because we still have a card, you know. Now, of course, in the circumstances, it's different. But yes, without a doubt, I think really, and something I've actually never thought until you've actually asked that question, Ireland and Dublin in general has a huge loyalty and devotion to your club, boxing club. Like, our biggest sport in Ireland is hurling and Gaelic. Okay, they're huge. Okay, huge. Nothing supersedes that, nothing. Okay, that's our sports. Go back to the day of Finn McKeown and Satanta, you know, and they're a huge, very prominent sport in our community. And boxing is the part of that fabric. But you're right, I don't know what it's like in the UK. I hope to think it is the same. But, you know, in Dublin, if you have been in a club in boxing, It's very, very, very rare that I know of, from my experience, that
you start to hop.
No, you don't hop.
You don't hop.
Samuel, you don't hop. That's the thing. I mean, like, there is times in the club where you're going to catch a kid between the age of, you give them the fundamentals. You give them the age of, for example, 8 or 10 up to about 12 or 13 or 14. And then they start going mutton, like after that they start meeting a girl and they might drift from the club a little bit. I see you smiling. That must have happened to you. Right? That must have happened to you.
My coach has a famous saying. He's like, I don't care if you've got 10 girlfriends. Just show up at the boxing session. And that was it. And, it says something, the discipline. He's like, I don't care how many girlfriends you have. You can have 10 for all I care. Just show up on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'll go from there.
And I'd say the club was very empty on the Tuesdays.
So it's fascinating, when you get into these threads of conversations with someone who is seeing these young men and guiding them, because that's what you're doing. You're guiding boys to young men.
That's a good way.
What would you say are some of the fundamentals which kind of shape, from your experience, a young man, and what are some of the successes you've seen in your own life and how you've coached and mentored some of these guys from really hard backgrounds? A lot of them, So can you talk on that?
Yeah, well, again, one of the points I was going to make in fairness was if you can catch a child between the age of 10 to 14 or 15 and you give them basic principles, as you said, of life experiences, and they head off. At some stage, hopefully, after you give them little tools, and they have their relationship problems, that they come back into the club. But you've given them some fundamental principles that is enshrined in their DNA.
Yes.
So when they come back, they already pick it up very easy, and now they're more serious about their boxing, which we find a lot happens in our club because we have the program right, which I think is very, very important because, without getting too much into the violence end of boxing, unfortunately, in Dublin where we were, there was a lot of trouble and feuds going on, and a lot of people were killed. And Lord be good to some of them in the club were.
Wow.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if sometimes you say to yourself, when you see, unfortunately, people's decisions or kids' decisions going the wrong way, it's detrimental to their own families and to their own communities. And with boxing, I think we always try and hold on to them at them important moments that they don't get down that road. I know London is a big place, and I understand the problems that London has as well, knife crime, and we understand it's hard, and you're trying to catch them all the time. You try to catch them all the time. But I'll give you a typical example, which I think is very important as well with kids at a very young age. Like, we have kids' classes, okay? And I happened to be in a class with Philip there last week, and there was about 45 kids in the club Saturday morning. And Philip was great with the kids as well. And I learned a little bit as well from Michael Carruth, who was Olympic gold medalist when I was doing a development programme. I was a development officer with Dublin City Council for a while. Oisin Fragan and Paul Quinn and people like him and that. And, it's the little things that ingredient that always works with kids, right? Always works with kids. But for example, Phil would get them into the ring. And he'd say, okay, everybody into the listening position. And he'd have them all with their hands like that. And their legs out. So now they're in the listening position. Okay, then you have them in the breathing position, and you have the hands over the head, and you get them all in, and you go, okay. He'd say, say young Ian or something. John, get into the centre of the ring. Okay, give me your name, your age, what school you go to, and what you're going to be. And he'd go, my name is Ian Flanagan, and I'm such and such of age, and I go to such and such a school, and we go, I can't hear you. And then he shouts it out then, And then he goes, my name is Ian Flanagan, I'm such and such. I go to Costa Dulick, say, for example, I'm just picking that as a name. And I'm going to be a world champion boxer. Okay? Show me your boxing stance. Now, that's only a small thing. Okay? But it's a huge thing in a child's life.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean, Sam?
You're teaching them a lot of things within this. It's a very teachable moment.
You've got an introvert and an extrovert.
Yes.
And two of them are same similarities.
Yeah.
There's no comparison between an introvert and an extrovert. No. The mindset is the exact same, just in a different way. So the way I looked at it was, like, and because I was an army man, but if that child, okay, at some stage through our process and his process, and let's not get the young ones like Katie Taylor, who has been a great boxer for Ireland.
Absolutely.
And I remember another girl in Ireland before Katie Taylor who won a world belt. Her name was Deirdre Geraghty.
Okay.
And the McCormick brothers, Pat and John Lobby, I think it was Pat that passed away and was at his funeral. They produced the first Irish world boxing champion as a professional as well. Deirdre Geraghty, people forget. But Katie is exceptional, of course, all along the line. Of course. And without Katie, we wouldn't have women boxing in the Olympics, personally. But getting back to the point I was going to make was that they could be in a room of people at some stage, and if they didn't get that chance to, let themselves speak or say what they wanted to say, or even afraid to say it, they'd be in a room maybe with business people at a meeting, and their confidence goes from there
to the roof,
right up to the roof. Exactly. Why? Because at a young age, everybody was listening to them, and everybody couldn't hear them. And now they're exerting themselves, and they're being a bit more vocal, and they're being a bit more strong in their demeanour and their approach. And if you can build that in their life, as you said, you've done your job.
Brilliant.
You've done your job as a boxing coach.
Brilliant.
That's what it's more important about. But we're still the produced champions.
Yes.
But do you know what I mean? Champions in life as well.
Yes.
Was at the end of your career is what it's all about, isn't it?
Listen, you're a man first.
That's it. And I think that's important through sport, in every aspect of sport. But again, and I'll go back to the point about boxing. Boxing is an individual sport. Always. Always. And the only people you can ever trust, as far as I'm concerned, the only people you can ever trust as a boxer is your corner. Okay, is your corner. I've seen so many fighters over the years as professionals and as amateurs have walked away from their team. And it's just, unfortunately, goes downhill. Doesn't it really?
That's the harsh reality of it.
I've seen more going down than going up, put it that way.
It's real. The business of boxing can sometimes be, people's interests are misaligned, and really the fighters are putting their life at risk, and you're right. It's probably a very small number of people who have their best interest of that fighter in that ring, and it's usually the corner.
It's usually the corner that they trust.
Their family.
Of course, their family's most important, but it's always the corner that trusts them and supports them and is there for them.
Yes.
At the most important times,
yes.
Not just in the corner, which is the most important time, but the ups and downs and getting them to achieve that. You know what I mean? That's which is very, very, very difficult. Like Matthew, for example, Matt Floyd. I mean, Matt doesn't come from the world of boxing.
No.
And something that people don't realise about Matt, and I'm glad I've got a chance to, and Phil only talked about this the other day, the head coach in the club, when we were going home in the car after sparring with Ben Mittiger and that, and here's a man like Ben Mittiger, he's got all the shots, he's going to be world champion.
Yeah.
Please God, I really am. Not because we went down and sparred him, but I've always supported Ben. I've seen him in the Olympics, and I've seen a lot of fighters like him, and I know Ben has all the attributes.
Tremendous talent.
Great, it's tremendous talent, and but Ben will tell you, he found Matt so awkward. Now, honestly, like Andy Lee, seen them all, he was sitting there with like a Cheshire cat smiling. I'm not out of being disrespectful to Matt, out of seeing something that's totally unique in a different form of the purest of a boxer. Because Matt, when he was in prison, he used to just have a mirror that size. So his feet, he never done anything with his feet.
He didn't see his feet.
He couldn't see his feet. Yep. All he could see was the shots. And that's why, that's why he throws them shots. But I can honestly tell you, I know what he says the Jedi, because it really is awareness and his ability to be able to slip.
Wow.
Now, again, it's not the usual rolling, ducking, slipping,
unorthodox.
None of that. It's a totally unique way of fighting. And it's a totally unique way of boxing. His balance is totally unorthodox. I still look at it, and I was with him for a good few months when he lived with me, and I was training him most days with Philip, and I was trying to get him to get that, that centre of balance that we were looking for boxers.
Yeah.
And of course, as Philip said, you know, in fairness to Philip, he's right with all the experience. We didn't want to change Matt too much. I'm in a position now, I think, in boxing, which someone said to me yesterday, which was very, very good. And Andy Lee actually said it himself. There's people going into misfit competitions who are making more money now than other professional boxers.
Very true. That's a factual statement.
And boxing is changing. And for the purists and the diehards like me, you know, the Hector Camachos, the Berta Duran, and, you know, and the Muhammad Alis, and, you know, people before them and all that, you know, them days are still there. But a lot of people, when they're sitting, when they go home at night, when they want to watch a fight, you know, they're not looking at the conventional way of boxing anymore. They're looking at, you know, I have a chance maybe that I could do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you know, but at the same time, you know, for me, what goes out the window is the Christian Cambanis in the club, you know, and the young Paul Griffins that had natural talent and the ability to come up all the way through and train. Now you can go to the Misfits competition. And I'm not being derogatory towards them whatsoever, because what I'm really trying to say is, more than anything else, is that you can learn boxing at a certain age, at a certain level, in a certain time of your life where you can excel.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got that, which is exciting and it's entertaining, okay? And then you can also switch over, you know, the likes of, you know, Bebov and, you know, all them fighters like him around our same area, and the Tank and people like him, and the Garcias, and, you know, and you look at that other exceptional boxing as well. So, you know, boxing is changing and it's going to develop, and there's a lot of money in the sport, you know. You've got the, you know, you got the Shamil Sheikhs, or should I say, the Turkmen Sheikh and everything, and you've got the Eddie Ahern's and the Frank Warrens, who've always been purists, by the way, in boxing. And they know their sport. They know their boxing. They're very, very good at what they do and putting that on. But, you know, it's going to be harder, I think, in the future to put on bigger shows of that, because I think, you know, the money aspect for the likes of people who think that these people have money, it's you know, you can lose a lot of money in boxing overnight as well, you know?
I think you've touched on something very key in what we're seeing and what's changing, is that our society is more story driven, more narrative driven, and that's why the likes of Misfits is doing so well, because they're really able to get their fighters' stories and narratives out there.
Yeah.
And we touch on that. We're touching on some of the stories, what you see from these young kids coming through the Crumlin Boxing Gym. But let's just touch on, you're here in London for upcoming fight week.
That's right.
Anthony Taylor.
That's right.
And I'm glad you've touched on Matt Floyd and his preparations to it. But what a story Matt has. And what a compelling journey he's been able to do. And is that not what boxing's all about? Is that a fighter his whole life, adversity, and could you just speak on watching a young man who's been through everything what Matt's been through, and seeing him with the likes of Ben Whitaker's, seeing him on the big stories, on the big platforms, the Misfits, the DAZNs, and holding his own, not just being present.
That's a good point.
But
holding his own. And the reason why I'm going to say on that point alone, and I'll tell you why, because there is a lot of people out there on the TikToks. I don't have it on either. I grew up from a different age. Okay, I just keep it simple. But you're right. Okay. People could say that Matt Floyd, for example, is, you know, a conventional boxer. Okay. Other people are going to go, you know, I don't mean this, but they will say, he can't box, and how does he have to get this far and all that, okay? But I'm going to tell you something about Matt Floyd. I'm sorry for laughing, right? People were saying, you know, but he was in with Sugar Shane Mosley, okay? And he was old, Sugar Shane Mosley was old. This is just what perceptions can be, okay, of Matt. People forget that Sugar Shane Mosley, okay, beat Oscar De La Hoya twice.
Of course.
Mayweather was lucky to last around him when he caught him with that shot.
Absolutely.
You know, he's in with Canelo. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Okay, for a reason.
For a reason,
because he was a purist of boxing. He was a purist. He's
a legend of boxing.
And he's a gentleman. And I met them all when we fought him. And to be in his corner with Phil Sutcliffe and Andy O'Neill is probably one of the best cutsmen in the world, by the way, from Crumlin Boxing Club. You know, I'd say he is the best cutsman in the world. I'm just being biased, but he is very good. He's been in Joshua's corner now. But to be in a corner looking over at a man, okay, of Sugar Shane Mosey's stature is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a man that's older. I'm looking at a man with a lot more experience, a lot more skill. Yeah. And he was still able to load up with that shot. So, okay, so we can make the point that, you know, and I don't like saying this because there's a lot in this, okay, but I want to just say this for the argument's sake, that he was an older man that fought Matt. Okay, Matt was bigger and stronger, okay, but same mate, they went in and boxed. But look at the experience Sugar Shane Mosey had compared to Matt. Yeah. Nobody talks about that. No. Nobody talks about, look at the experience that man had, okay, all his life against a person who's been learned how to box, basically in prison. Wow. Right? You know, I mean, we can have the stories of the Bertha Durans and the Hands of Stone and he came from the streets and I'm not disparaging people that came from that because it was a tough life. But if you want to look at a professional purist of a boxer like Sugar Shane Mosey and look at Matt Floyd. So you have the misfits meeting in the middle, the best in the world. Am I right or wrong?
A legit definition of a misfits.
Right?
Of a misfit match.
That's a brilliant analogy, right? That's great. Okay. And then he goes on and boxes and fights in the BKFC through Connors and Andrew Bakewell's in Manchester as well arena. James DeGale, who boxed, Lord be good to that in Sunderland a few times in the amateur game in Ireland. And James was an exceptional boxer. James DeGale was a great boxer. Listen, you know, great amateur.
Olympian.
Great amateur, yeah. Brilliant Olympic gold medalist. I think he was one of the first, wasn't he? I think gold medalist, I think.
Yeah, correct.
You know, he was brilliant and he was the idol of boxing. And I know people say, but bare knuckle and misfits and all that. Yeah, it is a different sport. It is a different boxing ability. It is a different that you can get somebody off the street to fight a fighter. And it is a totally different way because you're getting bone on bone. It's a vicious sport. It's a vicious sport. But James DeGale, no matter what you say about James DeGale, okay, and Matt saying, you know, that James, when Matt did, and Matt done the headbutt and everything else like that, and all this, and look, without going into that too much and analysing it too much, he didn't really go in with his head. It was just, it looked a lot worse than what it was, and it was a stupid thing he done, and he apologised for it. But you still have an IBF world champion, an Olympic gold medalist against a misfit fighter. Okay, so that's two people we've looked at now. Okay, two people we've looked at now. Okay, where you can't dismiss Matt Floyd anymore.
Absolutely.
You cannot dismiss Matt. His boxing ability is totally different, but his reading of boxing is exceptional. Right now we can move forward. Now, for example, okay, we went down and sparred Ben Wintiger. Okay, I don't want to go too much in about the spar, to be honest with you, okay? Because out of respect of both fighters, but it was a very, very, very good spar. And Ben was exceptional. Ben was exceptional. But Ben, at some stage, I'm sure will turn around and say, as Andy will say, you know, it's just a totally different, unusual style that he ever had. Now, you box, right, Simon? You get in with a novice, okay? And let's be realistic, you have all the shots and you've got your feet work right and you can slip a shot and backhand and maybe you might catch him on the check hook coming in. And a novice comes into your space of your way of boxing and he just taps you in that head with that little shot that you don't see. And that little shot. Yeah. Right? Now you're magnifying that 100 times with Matt Jedi. That's what you've got. A man that can read and can read professional fighters, okay, that are 100% good at the sport, okay? Wow. He's able to read them where it makes them fighters, okay, be very wary of his ability and his balance, okay? And again, you know, you can't dismiss Matt for that. You can't. So he's been with Ben Wintiger. He's been in with, who's better, Oscar De La Hoya each Sugar Shane Mosey. He's been in with James DeGale, you know, and, you know, okay, there's three that we know of that are household names, okay? So isn't it great that we can sit and have this interview in front of this camera knowing that there's people that be misfits have an opportunity to be able to box, okay? In a different context of the way we would look at boxing from Queensberry Roads onwards from there, okay? And that's the why I love the sport so much. That's why I'm in London and that's why I'm with the Jedi. I'm only a trainer. I'm a coach, of course, but we've got the head coach there. And all I'm saying is, through our little pieces of jigsaw puzzle, we can make Matt better than he already is. And come fight night, please God. Come fight night. I don't want to give too much away, but come fight night, it's going to be a great night.
Fantastic.
And that's what we're looking forward to. And that's why we're here. It's about the art and the sport of boxing. No matter what concept you want to look at it, it's about the person learning how to box their way, their special way, and how they achieve this to the pinnacle of the sport. And Jedi is the perfect example of that.
Wow. So there you have it. Tom Barton, what a pleasure.
Very nice to meet you. I'm sorry for going on too much, but we're Irish.
Thank you so much. People follow you and get behind what you're doing, Tom, in Crumlin. And are you on social?
I appreciate that. We do actually, thanks. And we have Crumlin Boxing Club webpage. It's just Google Crumlin Boxing Club and you'll see them all on TikTok, and you'll see what we do for the kids and how we try to achieve what we do in the sport of boxing. So you can log in fairly handy. Just put in Crumlin Boxing Club Dublin. Just put in Crumlin Boxing Club and you'll find them. And it'd be good. It'd be very interesting to have a look at what we do, what we try to achieve. And I hope by going into the website and having a look at what we do, that maybe you might, sponsor the club, that you like what you see for your own kids, and hopefully through the sport of boxing and in the UK as well, that we can maybe, learn from each other and make people better and the art of boxing a lot more entertaining as we go on in the future. And I really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for your time and effort.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Appreciate
this is the DKJ signing out.
Gara Mila Maragot, Slán agus Bannacht.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom. That was awesome.